back to BLOCKTV, and now with more than half of the world's population in lockdown, the show must still go on, and we are joined by Zoom by Kerner of CryptoOracle. Lou, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Yona, great to be here.
All right, now, Lou, you've long been a supporter of decentralized governance and against, decentralization of power. I want to know, the biggest news from last week was Binance's acquisition of CoinMarketCap. What's your take there? Is this the beginning of the fully centralization of cryptocurrencies?
Well, I think what you're seeing is scale begets scale. So Binance obviously is a very successful company, making a lot of money. And the question is, how do they reinvest that? And they're obviously trying to grow, not only their reach, but the entire industry's reach. And crypto, CoinMarketCap is really the largest media company in terms of audience. So I think it's a super interesting acquisition on Binance's part. I assume they'll put more money into it and, and hopefully make it more functional.
Mm-hmm. So economies of scale, that's one of the big things about centralization is the economy of scale. But on the other side, you kind of want that decentralized, you don't want power to be too centralized, but you're looking at it as a positive.
I think so. Well, I think CoinMarketCap, there's always been a lot of questions about how they, about how they actually get their metrics. How much counting are they doing of fake volume? And so the hope is that if more money is put into it, we can all have more faith in the metrics on CoinMarketCap.
Mm-hmm. And speaking about, the centralization of power, this is spoken about a lot, but the government, the U.S. government has put a $2.2 trillion bailout plan, which, there's a lot of opinions there about. But I just want to talk logistically. And so far, there's been widespread reports of issues about accessing the money, getting the money into actual hands of the people, doubtless inefficiencies. I'm sure there will be fraud that will come out of this as well. In your view, is the current system broken? And if you were in power, what would you do in their place? What would you do to fix it? Sure.
I think what we have at a really macro level here in the United States is we have capitalism for 99.9% of the people. And then for the 0.1% in the corporations, we have socialism. And, it's great if you're in that top 0.1%, but everybody else is getting crumbs. The $1,200 that people are going to get, is a tiny amount. It's not going to help. It's certainly better than nothing. But it's not going to help very many people for very long. The small business loans is right now seems to be a real clusterfuck in terms of the process of putting in the applications. And the majority of the money is actually going to be given to larger corporations. The airlines are expected to get over $15 billion. And that's socialism. These are we're supposed to be capitalist companies. A capitalist system. But when every time, I have a joke. I have a word that I use to describe the tendency of markets to become overvalued and then undervalued and crash and bubbles and crashes and bubbles and crashes. And that's capitalism. That's the word I use to describe it. And so, when there's capitalism and things are going well, the large corporations make billions and tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars, buy back lots of stock. And then when things crash, then the government bails them out. So it's kind of heads, in the bubble kind of heads, maybe everybody wins, and tails, it's only the 0.1% that wins.
Now, why do you think it's always the 0.1% that's getting the bailouts? The corporations are getting the bailouts. That money's not going, or as much money is not going to individual. Is this just flawed logic? Are they trying to do the right thing but poor execution, or is it simply that the people making the decisions who are in power are trying to benefit themselves?
It's the latter. They're the people who control Washington. I think the easiest, simple thing to do, if what you want to do is really help people, which I think is what government should largely be focused on, you would just take all that money and put it into people's pockets. And while there would be massive amounts of fraud and waste, in some ways, obviously, in doing that I think is broadly expected to be, or broadly thought to be the most effective way to really help people, and the most effective way also to kickstart things once people are allowed to go back outside again and spend money, because they'll be the ones who will decide how much to spend. We're going to give all this money to airlines. And the real question is, what are airlines going to be, over the next 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years? Are we ever going to return to flying like we used to? A lot of people think not.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. We also spoke a little about those logistical issues, about how even getting the money, as well as how do we know how they're going to spend the money afterwards. Do you think there's room here for the blockchain to kind of, utilize this technology, one, for transparency, so we could actually see where our taxpayer money is going, as well as to help logistically get the money into the hands of individuals?
Certainly in the future, I think there's an opportunity for that. I don't think, the systems here are so broken. Now we're hearing that the IRS systems are so outdated that it's going to be take a lot longer than originally anticipated, even to get the funds to the people who have put in tax returns in the prior years. So once again, what we're seeing is that things are I think not only broken but irreparably broken. So we should be working on new, trying to create new systems that are functional, not just trying to fix, old systems that are unfixable.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm not going to hold my breath on that check, but last week we spoke about Amara's law. The idea that revolutionary technology is overestimated in the short run and underestimated in the long run. You helped brought that up. Now, is there any fear, especially with the confluence of three major factors here? We're dealing with three major factors, one being the economic hardships brought up on by COVID-19. The second being for Bitcoin, the upcoming Bitcoin halving, which will cut miners' rewards in half. And thirdly, Bitcoin is right in Amara's law. It's going from that overestimated, or it's already done with, overestimated to underestimated. Do you think that all three factors that are combined in this once in a lifetime time could lead to a collapse of faith in the system and then a collapse in the network?
I think you hit upon the key word, I think, really, which is faith. Yeah, at the end of the day, all systems rely on faith. The US dollar, nothing backs the US dollar except for faith. And so the question is are we in a period of time now when I think people have to have, every day are having less and less faith in their government and their monetary systems? That certainly seems to be a ripe opportunity for people to look at Bitcoin and to begin to have faith in Bitcoin, even if they don't really understand how Bitcoin works. I don't think it's important to teach people. I think it's very complex, and if people have to understand Bitcoin before they have faith in it, I think we're in for a long slog. But if we can convince people that, you don't understand the current monetary system, all you need to understand now is that this is an algorithm. There's nobody in the middle saying how things are going like every government works. But now this is by the community, for the community. Have faith in that. I think that's the opportunity that we have today.
Mm-hmm. All right, now you're a big proponent of DeFi, decentralized finance. The question is this: does DeFi, or can DeFi even work in times like this when unemployment hits record highs and markets tanking and there's all sorts of unknowns and uncertainty?
Look, we're in the very beginning days, obviously, of DeFi, but it's so incredibly exciting. I think there's so much opportunity for innovation, the way that, that they're kind of like Lego blocks where you can pick different, things and put them together and have all of a sudden new things. There are going to be plane crashes. We're in the very beginning again of this, just like in the early days of flight, there were lots of plane crashes, so we have to expect that. But I think in terms of what's scaling, the first thing to scale was speculation in Asia, and that's still scaling. That's why Binance has the money to buy CoinMarketCap for 400 million. I think DeFi is really the second thing that we're seeing that scales, and if we can make DeFi easier, something in DeFi might well have the opportunity to be the first thing that really gets the mass adoption that we're all waiting for.
Mm-hmm. And something that might actually help that is that, like we mentioned before, no one really knows when this will end and what the world will look like. You mentioned, who knows when airplanes will get back to the skies, but do you think that because everyone has already been working at home, stuck at home, that some of those changes that we might see post COVID-19 might include more DAOs, more DeFi, things that are better suited towards surviving giant shocks to the system?
Yeah, I think that's the hope. I think we're still so early in terms of what the pandemic is really going to end up. What's the impact of that? How many people are going to die? We really don't know what either the health thing is going to be about, and also what's the real near-term economic impact. So everybody talking about what the long-term impact of these things are going to be. If we don't even know what these things really are today, I think it's hard to know what the impact of them are going to be. But certainly, this is what Bitcoin was built for. This was the world that, those of us who saw the crypto light knew was going to come at some point. I just think none of us thought that it would come as quickly as this. And so, if what we need to simply do is get people to have that faith and at the same time try and build products that people want and can use.
Mm-hmm. Let's going a little more micro. Speaking about DAOs, Maker has actually been trying to go more decentralized. How well are they doing at that goal?
Look, I think again, it's early days, like a lot of other projects. The idea is they'll start with a lot of centralization, and then over time, they'll become less and less decentralized until they're fully decentralized. And Maker has laid out a path that they think is going to take a couple years to get fully decentralized. But again, the truth is nobody understands what plane crashes are going to be involved, and nobody really understands what's going to be involved. So I think it's very hard to have any kind of time frame on it. Obviously, to date, everybody who's tried to decentralize and has put dates out there, almost all of them have slipped by a lot. And again, it's such early days. I think if you go back, I don't know if you have the ability to put up any of those graphs that I sent you, but if you actually take a look at the number of people in the community that are actually participating, whether it's even just something as simple as watching the video about what's going on so that they can be informed about what's going on. It's only on average 200 to 300 people are watching these videos. And then when it actually comes to voting, it's on average 20 to 30 Maker holders are voting. So it's incredibly small number of people who are really participating. And so, part of the challenge for them is how do they get more people involved and participating. And then at the same time as that happens, more people that are participating, the more complexity quite often you get. So, there are a lot of challenges. And, the thing that gives me confidence is that a lot of the smartest people in the world are working on these problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you brought up an issue there. There's not so many at this point. It's still new, and there's not so many people in there still voting, which leads to a very small amount of people voting and more of a concentration of power. Now, if we look at the original, let's say the original blockchains or the more old school blockchains, Bitcoin, Ethereum, especially with Ethereum, where they kind of, when they started, they had a lot of consolidation of coins. Ethereum, they mined a lot of coins for themselves. With Satoshi, he mined a lot of the first Bitcoins. So when it comes to DAOs, and they're just starting off, they're brand new, there's not a lot of people. What's stopping this kind of consolidation of power from just the beginning, only a small amount of people getting their hands on that power?
Yona, that's obviously one of the challenges that we have. And I think the most exciting thing to happen in DAOs, over the last couple of years, really is the introduction of MolekDAO, which has spawned more than 100 forks with things like Metacartel that are super interesting. But those are all what MolekDAO brought us was the minimum viable product for DAOs. So really, really simple single cell, multi-cell, things that can't do anything very complex in a fully decentralized way at this time. Now on the other end, what you have is something like Maker, which is really complex, and starting on the other end, we're going to be really complex and then DAOify over time. And the question is, which way is the better path? Is it better to start out really simple and become more complex over time, or is it better to start off more complex and DAOify over time? And I don't think we know the answer to that, but I think we'll learn as we get more and more activity in DAOs.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like there's a lot uncertain in this world today right now, but thank you, Lou, for joining us and help to clear the air just a little bit. Thanks so much for joining us, Lou. And next time, for all our viewers at home who want more on blockchain technology and crypto news, make sure to check us out at BLOCKTV.com.
Watch us on Amazon Fire TV and Roku.